With the first pick in the 2022 NBA Draft, the Orlando Magic select Paolo Banchero from Duke University. The Orlando Magic select Franz Wagner from Berlin, Germany. Jalen Suggs from Cole Anthony. Anthony Black. Jet Howard from the University of Michigan.
When I think of the history of the Orlando Magic, I think of three distinct eras. The Shaquille O'Neal and Penny Hardaway era. In the early to mid-1990s, the Magic were a new expansion team, and Shaq became the first superstar in franchise history. He also became the first player ever to get his jersey retired by the Magic. Though this era was short-lived, as Shaq left after 4 years, it was probably the most iconic and recognizable period that put this team on the map. Next, I think of the Tracy McGrady era. Even though they never won more than 44 games and always sat near the bottom of the playoff standings, T-Mac was such a popular, influential superstar, and fans across the globe only watched Orlando games to see him. It was an era marred by injuries and poor management, and just like Shaq, T-Mac left after 4 seasons. That brings us to the third era, the Dwight Howard era. This was the first time the Magic saw prolonged, consistent high levels of success, led by a franchise player who actually seemed like he wanted to stay. Well, at least for a longer time than their 2 previous stars. After that, I guess you could say it was the Aaron Gordon and Nikola Vucevic era? Which, I don't really consider this a major period in their history, since it was quite forgettable. But this era shaped the foundation for their current success. How's it going, folks? My name's Andy, and in this video, let's take a look at how the Orlando Magic, after years upon years of uncertainty during their rebuilding phase, have finally become a team with a clear identity and direction. Starting in 2012, the last season that Dwight Howard was here, up until 2023, the Orlando Magic only had 1 season with a winning record. That would be the 2018-19 season, where they went 42-40, just barely a winning record. This is what that roster looked like. With the exception of Jonathan Isaac, no other player from that roster is still on the team today. Looking back, it was a strange group of guys, a team that wasn't particularly strong in any specific skill. Vooch was kind of their franchise player, but not really. He developed into their best player, but I wouldn't say the Magic tried to build around him. Then you had a young Aaron Gordon, who was still finding his way. He played a lot differently prior to the Nuggets. They attempted to turn him into the star of this team, but it wasn't really working. Evan Fournier was the same way. Then you had a bunch of young role players, many of whom are already out of the NBA. This so-called Big Three lasted for several years, up until the 2021 trade deadline. At this point, the Magic finally realized, okay, this isn't working. We've tried waiting, we've tried building around these guys, and it's not working. It led to the most glorious blow-up I've ever seen. At that deadline, they traded away their entire core within the span of 2 days. I've never seen a team be that decisive in blowing up a roster, and people jokingly called it the Magic fire sale. Despite all the underwhelming years this trio provided the franchise, and amidst all the poor draft selections that never panned out, one good thing came out of it. It made the organization realize they needed to stop this experiment and move in a different direction. By sending their 3 main guys to 3 different teams, they managed to get enough back in return to kickstart the beginning of a new era. It wasn't just the trades though. They overhauled several higher positions in the organization. Coach Steve Clifford parted ways, replaced by first-time head coach but long-time assistant and player development specialist, Jamal Mosley. Jeff Weltman replaced Rob Hennigan as the new team president. Weltman was previously with the Raptors and helped turn their franchise around too. They even hired a new GM, Anthony Parker. With all these changes, the most important part is the Magic showed a willingness to improve, and seeing them make all these changes, it's a great start. Now, what exactly did they get back in those trades that helped them rebuild? They didn't get much back for trading away Evan Fournier or Aaron Gordon, which is unfortunate. Fournier was basically a salary dump, and Gordon was kind of one as well. They got back longtime Nugget Gary Harris, along with Denver's protected 2025 first-round pick, which I don't think will be worth much. Harris had a good couple years, but he's not a focal point of this team anymore. However, they hit the jackpot with Nikola Vucevic. They got a great package in return for him, and saying it was a great package is underselling it. You would think the Magic traded away a generational talent. He fetched more than most superstars. It was initially seen as a deal centered around Wendell Carter Jr. That's who the Magic wanted, but it was the future draft picks that turned out to be gems. In particular, the 2021 first-round pick they got back, which turned out to be the 8th pick of the draft, Franz Wagner. Along with Paolo Banchero, who got drafted the year after, these two 6'10" forwards launched the Orlando Magic into a brand new era.
Tall-skilled beats small-skilled all the time. Now, you know, small-skilled beats tall-stiff all the time. But, I mean, there's just no way. Like, I honestly, I watched, you know, your Golden State series and said, I would love to have Draymond Green guard me. I don't care how many threes, what he was doing. I'm just like, there's just no way that guy, he couldn't grow enough to guard me. I mean, you know.
You'll be hearing from him tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Draymond, you couldn't grow enough, young man.
I can guarantee you this: small-skilled beats big-stiff, but big-skilled beats small-skilled every time. That was a quote said by Kevin McHale during a roundtable among various NBA coaches. The thing is, at the time he said this, it was during a period where smaller guys were dominating, in particular the early to mid-2010s, where it seems like there were such few dominant big men and the league was taken over by guards. People back then theorized that in the future, the most dominant teams in the NBA would have several guys who are 6'9" and 6'10", who can run, shoot, dribble, drive, create plays, and finish plays, basically guys who can do everything at that height. The Orlando Magic is a great example of this theory coming to reality. Very early on, the organization recognized the talent and skills of these two guys. Banchero was more of a surefire prospect. Everyone knew who he was prior to coming to the NBA. He was the #1 pick after all. Wagner was not as known, but he developed much quicker than we thought. When you watch these two guys play together, they're so versatile. They're both very good at so many aspects of the game. You would be hard-pressed to find any major weaknesses for either of these guys. And you compact all of their skills into the body of a 6'10" forward, it's a nightmare matchup for any opponent. This is what people around the league warned us about: a team who can utilize multiple skilled big men to their fullest potential. It takes more than just pure talent to become a winning team, however. Jeff Weltman and the executives did a phenomenal job to draft high-character, high-IQ players, and each one of these guys in this locker room has won at some level. That is important to our culture. I think when you can understand winning, you know what you're asked to do. Whether you were the guy that scored 40 on your college team or high school team, but you also knew what winning took. Jamal Mosley's coaching style is unorthodox, to put it lightly. Right when he took over after the departure of Steve Clifford, the Orlando Magic went from being near the bottom of the league in defense to a respectable defensive team, hovering around the middle of the pack for a couple of years before rising to a top 3 defense. The best 2 words to describe the Magic's defense are aggressive and desperate. I know it sounds cliche, but it really is like that. They defend every position like it's the 4th quarter. It's their style of defense that stands out. They're way more willing to blitz the pick and roll with their bigs. They do it frequently, especially when they're facing an all-star caliber guard, like Damian Lillard here for example. Their bigs come out pretty far to try and hound them, force them to pass it. This type of defense it's a high-risk, high-reward type of playstyle. However, when you have a team that's so long, players who are so athletic and can quickly switch and recover, it makes this type of defense less risky and more rewarding. The Magic have also implemented way more ball denial than most other teams, not just to prevent them from getting the ball, but to limit the options for the opposing guards to pass to. Normally, it's risky to play this way, but the Magic have the personnel to pull it off. They are the 4th youngest team after all, with a roster that's built to play this way. From top to bottom, they got highly intelligent players who communicate very well. That's what Coach Mosley emphasized right when he got here. Communication, it's the key to success. All of their players move, switch, and slide in one cohesive unit. It's like they're moving on a string. What makes or breaks a rebuilding team is usually determined by what kind of players they get in the draft. For the Magic under Mosley, they've developed this defensive identity, and their goal in every draft is to find guys who fit into this identity, and hopefully they'll complement their 2 main stars as well. In the 2023 draft, with 2 picks in the lottery, they drafted Anthony Black and Dwight Howard. What these 2 guys have in common is they're both big guards. They fit into the playstyle the Magic want to play, and both of them were considered good defensive players in college. The Magic also needed an actual point guard, and that's why they took Anthony Black. For a while, they tried the whole Jalen Suggs experiment at point guard, but that wasn't working. Dwight Howard was drafted purely for his shooting ability. The dude projects to be a sniper, so he would definitely help with the Magic's spacing issues. Over the years, heck over the decades, the Magic have hit on some great picks in the lottery, but they've had way more misses than they'd like. Mario Hezonja, Jonathan Isaac, Mo Bamba? Yeah, those were rough. Ever since the new management took over, they've been way more decisive at drafting, and their plan is finally coming to fruition. Though not everything is perfect. Despite their progress, there are plenty of obstacles that the Magic have yet to find a solution to. I mentioned earlier about their point guard problem. Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner lead this team in assists, which I guess it makes sense, because they have the ball in their hands so often. But you can't expect these guys to carry all of that burden on their shoulders. They've used Banchero a lot as the primary ball handler, to varying degrees of success. The team averages 15 turnovers a game, the 6th most in the NBA, along with being bottom 5 in both 3-point attempts and 3-point percentage. It's the domino effect. The lack of spacing and reliable shooters have caused the Magic to have one of the worst pick-and-roll games among all teams. The pick-and-roll ball handlers average just 0.81 points per possession, an effective field goal percentage of just 43%. They need a true point guard who can set them up to get easier baskets, instead of relying on them to create every point. The Magic's purpose of drafting Suggs and Black was for this reason, to alleviate the pressure off their 2 main guys. But, you know, it's still a work in progress. Cole Anthony used to be the starting point guard, but he's been coming off the bench. Honestly, Orlando has drafted a lot of point guards in recent years, and all of them are a bit dicey. At least they recognize their weakness, and they're trying to find the right guy. At the end of the day, the Orlando Magic have rebuilt their team the right way. They spent years waiting for their old core to take that leap, but it just never happened. They realized this and blew it up in a single trade deadline, which is nice. You never want to remain mediocre and keep running into a brick wall, like so many other teams have done. With the assets they got back and some lottery luck thrown in, it all kickstarted their rebuild. We've arrived at a new era, the Banchero-Wagner era. And this time, perhaps they could build something special. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope y'all enjoyed the video. And of course, as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.